So the next concept that we will learn is about JSON data type, right? So now we have seen many data types, right? We have seen strings, we have seen date time, we have seen varchar, right? In the same line, we have another data type called JSON data type, right? So what this data type helps us do is it will help us in inserting JSON type of data into our database, right? So first let us see how we can create a table with JSON data type. Then we will see how we can insert data into the JSON data type, and then we will see some interesting operations on the JSON data type like insert, update and delete, right? So let us see. So first let us see how to create the table which has a JSON data type, right? So what I will say create table, right? We have already seen this example. Then I will add a primary key to this one, right? Int primary key, right? Now I will add a data property, right? And the data type of this one will be JSON, right? And I will add one more property called grade, and I will mark it as JSON, right? And here I have to give the table name, right? So let me call it as student, right? Now what I will do, so if you see here, this is a integer primary key, right? This is the data which will hold the JSON data type, as well as the grade which will also hold the JSON data type, right? So I'll run this one, right? So if you see here, table is successfully created, right? So what I will do is swap it to this side, right? Then let us try to insert some data into this table, right? So what I will do, insert into student, right? Then what values, like what fields I want to insert, ID and data. Let me insert these two fields first, okay? I'll say values, right? So there are a couple of ways in which I can insert data into the JSON data type, right? So first is the ID, right? I'll keep it as 1. Then if I want to add a JSON data type, what I will say, JSON object, right? Here I will pass key value pairs, right? So one key is name, right? The value that I will pass is John, right? Another key value pair will be age, right? And I will keep it as 30, right? How else I can insert data? I can use instead of using the JSON object, I can directly use a string notation of the JSON object, right? So let us see the example for that one. So I will say ID2, right? And I will start my bracket. I will start my quotation mark. Within this, I will add curly braces. This curly braces defines the JSON data type, right? So what I will say name, right? Colon, I will say Jane, right? This is one key value pair. Then comma, age, right? Colon, and I'll give a age, say 25, right? Now, what about nested JSON? So for that, what I can do, I'll take one more example. I'll say 3ID, right? I'll add the quote marks and then curly braces, right? Here also I'll do the same thing. Name, I'll say Annie, right? And I'll say age as 29, right? And next property will be address, right? This address is again a JSON object, nested JSON object. So I will add one more curly braces, right? And here I can give a property, say city, I'll say Austin, right? And here I should end this with this quote marks, okay? Otherwise it will give syntax error, right? So if you see here, this is one way to add JSON data, that is key value pair in the JSON object, function, right? This is one JSON, right, that I am passing as a kind of a string, right? And here also it looks like a string, but internally it will take it as a JSON data type, right? So here we have one key value pair. This is one more key value pair. Here also one key value pair, one more key value pair. This is one key. This is the value, right? And within this, since this is a nested JSON object, so what it has another key value pair inside this address key, right? Now I'll run this one and see if there are any errors, right? So right here one quotation mark was missing, right? So I will execute this one. So if you see here, it has inserted 3 rows, right? Now if we have to see what values are there inside this student table, what I can do, I can run a select statement on this one, right? So I will say select star from student, right? If I run the query, if you see here, we have ID 1, 2, and 3, right? And we have the JSON data, right? Age 30, and name is some value, right? Here also age and name, here also age, name, and address, right? So if I click on this one, that plus hover icon, you can see the JSON object that is available here, right? And if you see here, the grade is null because we have not inserted grade into this table column, right? Now the question is, since this data is available with us, what additional advantage are we getting if we use the JSON data type? I could have simply inserted it as a string data type, right? Which also looks like a string representation here in the table column, right? So what advantage are we getting if we use the JSON data type, right? So let us see one example for that one. Now I want to select the name of this column. So within this data column, we have a JSON object. Within that JSON object, I want to get the name, right? Not as a whole JSON object string, but only the name property, right? So for that, how can I write a query? So what I can do, select, right, data, then I will use a arrow mark, that is a dash and a greater than symbol, right? Then I will use the dollar operator dot name, right, as I will say student name, right? I will do little indentation. So what I have done, this is the column name. From the column name, what I want to extract, the name property. So for that, what I am doing, I am using an arrow. This is the syntax. Then within the quotation mark, I will say dollar dot name. So this dollar dot name will point to this name property, right? Similarly, say for example, let us take the age also. So what I will do, I will say data, then arrow, right? Then dollar dot age, and I will give an alias, right, as student age, right? And then what I will do, from which table? From student table, of course, right? So if I run this one, let us see what data we are getting, right? So if you see here, student name, this was actually part of the JSON object, right? But here I am able to filter it as an individual table column, right? So student name is John and the age is 30. Like that, for each individual JSON key value pair, it has extracted the individual key and individual its value, right? So this item will be the key and these are the value, right? So this is the advantage that we are getting if we use the JSON data type. we can directly query into the JSON key value pair, right? Now, how can I access the nested property, right? So I have a nested property called address, and within that we have city, right? So now I want to extract city, right? So let us see how I will do that. So data, right? Dollar dot. Okay. So what is the first key here? First key is address, right? So I will say address. Then I will add one more dot to go into the nested object, and I will say city, right? As I will say student city, right? Now if you see, only the third ID student has a valid city address, right? Others don't have. So what will happen to the other two columns, other two rows? Let us see, right? So if I reduce the size of this one, if you see, I'm getting Austin for this third student. This is the data that we have added, right? Other two, we don't have we have no data for the address and the city column, right? So that's why we are getting null here. So if you have even more deep nested objects, you can keep on using this dot to extract the JSON type of data, right? Now, can I update the JSON data? Yes. So I can individually go into the JSON key value pair and I can update the JSON data, right? So let us see one example for JSON update, right? So what I will do, of course, I will say update student, right? What I want to update, I want to update the age for say ID 1, right? So what I will do, set data equals to JSON underscore set, right? This is the function name, right? Now what I want to set, like what is my parent column name, that is data. What value I want to update, so say for example I want to update the age, right? And what is the value, the value, say for example I will say 31 instead of 30, let us update it as 31, right? And what I have to do, of course I have to add a where condition, right? Where id equals to 1. If I don't add where id equals to 1, it will update for all the rows that is available in the table, right? So if you see here, what I have done, of course, update student, and there is a where condition. This part is important. What I am doing, I am setting data. I am setting it with what? I am using the JSON set method. What this will do? It will take data age property and assign it to 31, and whatever the value, it will assign it back to data, right? So data equals to JSON set data, its age, set it to 31 for these where conditions, right? So if you see here, I have currently 30, right? Now I will run update on this one, right? So if you see, successfully updated, one row affected. Now if I run this query again, we'll see the updated JSON data, right? So let us see here. If you see, we have 31 now. Earlier it was 30. It was updated because of this update statement, right? Now let us try to play around with array type of object, right? So here, if you remember, we have a student grade, right? If I run a select star from student, you will see we have a grade data type also, that is also a JSON, right? We have a grade column that is also of JSON data type, right? So now what I want is, in this grade column, I want to insert array of grade for this particular student ID, right? So for that, I'll use the update statement, right? Update student, right? I will say set. Now set which property? Set grade, right? Equals to what? I'll say JSON array. JSON array, I'll say 90, okay, 56 and 78, right? These are some random grade values, right? If then I have to add a where condition, where id equals to say 2, for example, right? So for student 2, I want to add a grade array, right? So I run this update statement, right? So it says one row affected, right? Now I'll run the select star from student. Let us see what happened. So if you see here, ID1 is still null, ID3 is still null because we did not add. We only add it in the ID3. Here, the array items are added as grade, right? Can we do some operation on this array item, right? So for example, instead of 56, say for example, I want to update this to 65, right? So for that, what I will do, update student, right? Set grade, right? Then I will use the function JSON replace. What this replace will do, it will replace a particular index of the JSON, particular index of the array, right? So for that, what I will say, for that, what column I want to upgrade or what column I want to update as a part of the replace. So that is grade, right? Now, which index I want to update? So for index, of course, we'll use the dollar sign. Then within square bracket, we will give the index, right? So I'll say index 1. So here the index starts from 0, right? So this 90 is 0th index, right? 56 is the first index. So what I'm trying to do, I'm doing JSON replace of grade its index 1 with a new value that is 65, right? Where student ID equals to 2. This anyways, this where condition anyways you have to give, right? So if you see here, we have 90 and 56 and 78. Now I will run this execute statement, right? It says one row affected. That's fine, right? Then we will run the select statement. So if you see here, the value is now updated to 65, right? So we have seen how we will set the data. We have seen how to update the data. Let us see how to remove the data, right? So here I will say remove, right? What I want to remove from grade, I want to remove first index, right? This third parameter is not needed. So this 65 will be removed. We will only be left with 90 and 78. So what does this mean? Update grade or set grade. Use the function JSON remove. Update grade, that means remove from grade first index. And remember the index starts from 0, right? So I'll execute this one. One row affected, right? Now I'll execute the select statement, right? So if you see here, 65 is removed. Now we only have 90 and 78, right? So we have seen how to set the JSON array, how to update it, and how to remove from the JSON array, right? Let us see how we can search within the JSON object, right? Say for example, I want to search if there is a name called John, right? So what I will say, select JSON search, right? JSON search on which column? I'll search on data column, right? How many I want to search? So we have two options here in the second parameter, one or all. So I'll stick with one, right? So it will search only once, right? Now what I want to search? I want to search Jane, right? Let us see if we have Jane in our data column in the student table, right? From student, right? Now if I run this one, if you see here, we are getting null because in the row 1 we don't have any name called Jane. Similarly for 3 we don't have any name called Jane, right? Now in 2 we are getting the value. What is this value? This is the path in which this search string matched, right? What is the path? That means at the root level, there is no nesting here. At the root level, we have a path called name in which this Jane object this chain key matched, right? So this will give us the path, right? So can I say, for example, 25? Do we have something called 25 in data JSON object, right? So let us search this one. This is another example. If you see here, we have age, right? So 25, here age is the path to the value 25, right? Similarly, let us try for Austin. Do we have something called Austin in our database, right? So I'll run the search. So if you see here, first two are null, right? In the third one, what it says, Austin is found in address.city. This is the path. So if you are looking for Austin, this is the path you have to follow for the third ID, right? That's what this JSON search means, right? So this is what the JSON search means. It will return you the path to the value where this key is found, right? Now let us take an example of an aggregate function, right? So what are aggregate functions? We have already discussed aggregate function. So here what I want to do, I want to find the length of the grades array, right? So we have a grade column, right? And within that we have inserted a array object, right, as part of the JSON data type. So I want to find the length of the array, right? So for that, what I will do, I'll remove this one, right? I will say select, right, id comma JSON length of which property? I will say grade property as grade length from student, right? Now if I run this one, if you see here, of course it will be null because for the id 1 and id 3 we don't have anything in the grade column, right? On the second index, on the second id, we have the grade array which had two value. We had inserted 3 items, then we did an update, then we did a remove. Now we are left with only 2 items. That means that's why we are getting the length as 2, right? This is what the JSON length will give us. So can I use having on this one? So I'll say having, I'll say grade length equals to 3. So if I add this having condition, do you think we will get any value? Do we have any grade length which is equal to 3? So if I run this one, of course it will give us empty data set, right? If I say grade length equals to 2, right, I'll get 2. So this is how we can use aggregate function and having condition, right?